My phone sat silently on the table all morning on my birthday, quiet and still, like me, in a house that used to echo with laughter. But Andrew's Venmo account wasn't silent. It was active, deliberate. I wasn't hoping for flowers, or cake, or a song. At my age, you learn to grow comfortable with absence. I thought I'd outgrown disappointment, but as the clock slipped past noon with no message, no call, my heart still sank, like a song cut off just before the chorus. Not even a simple, "Happy birthday, Mom." I sat by the window as soft spring sunlight spilled across the table, where a small carrot cake waited, the same kind I used to bake for Andrew when he was 6. Today, it was just big enough for one. I lit the candle, then blew it out myself. No wish, no one watching. I poured tea. My hand trembled slightly. Then I pulled out my old leather notebook, the one that held all the important things, recipes, passwords, doctor appointments, and lately, strange charges from my bank account. I'm not someone who jumps to conclusions, but something was waiting just under the surface, a truth, a betrayal. If you've ever waited for a birthday message that never came, if you've ever felt forgotten on the one day you thought you'd be remembered, stay with me. This story is for you, and don't forget to subscribe, because somewhere in what comes next, you just might find yourself. Earlier that day, I opened my banking app without much thought, not because I was suspicious, just habit. That's when I saw it, $94.20, Lorente's Trattoria, 6:08 p.m. I blinked. Lorente's, a high-end Italian restaurant not far from downtown. George and I had celebrated my 55th birthday there. That was the last time I had gone. He died the following spring. I hadn't had a reason to go back, but Andrew had, on my birthday, and he had used a card in my name. I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I just sat there, hand wrapped around my teacup, willing myself to stay still. Then I opened Instagram. His profile was still public. He hadn't blocked me, probably didn't think he needed to. There it was, the photo, posted just over an hour ago. He was sitting in a deep red booth under golden light, a wine glass raised in one hand. That practiced smile stretched across his face, the one he used when he wanted to look successful. Jason sat beside him, as always. Their table overflowed with dishes, pasta, wine, maybe even dessert. The caption read, "Treat yourself. You deserve it." I read it twice, then I checked the comments. Whose card this time? LOL, did your mom pay again? No denials, no corrections, just silence, as if it was understood. I set the phone down slowly, pulled the notebook toward me, and began to write. March 22nd, birthday, no text, no call, $94.20 at Lorente's, 6:08 p.m. Caption, treat yourself. Comment, did your mom pay again? I tapped the pen gently against the paper's edge, then underlined a single word. Remember? I didn't blame Andrew for forgetting. I blamed myself for assuming he'd remember. The cake sat untouched, minus one neat slice I had taken earlier. The scent of cinnamon and cream cheese frosting lingered in the air. Beside it sat a small gift bag from Susan, my neighbor of 2 decades. Inside, lavender hand cream and a pair of thick wool socks. Nothing extravagant, but thoughtful. Susan always remembered. I poured more tea. The quiet in the house wasn't unfamiliar, but it carried a new weight today. I picked up my phone again, not out of hope, but routine, and reopened my banking app. Card ending in 3289. Still active. I scrolled to the card management tab. Freeze card? Are you sure? My finger hovered above the button. One tap, and it would be done. No more quiet theft. No more birthdays remembered only by the charges I noticed after the fact. But I didn't press it. Not yet. I canceled the action and let the screen fade. I walked slowly down the hallway, past the family photos I hadn't rearranged in years. Andrew in his graduation gown. George and I in the backyard, smiling on a summer day. I paused in front of the pictures, not out of sentiment, but calculation. What had I enabled? What had I overlooked in the name of love? Back in the kitchen, I reached for the notebook again. Under the last entry, I wrote another line. He forgot my birthday, but remembered the PIN I never gave him. I closed the notebook with care and placed it in the drawer beside the sink. And the sun had dipped low enough now that the living room was cast in amber shadow. From somewhere down the street, a child's laughter rose and fell like birdsong, quick, bright, and gone. I stood up, rinsed my cup, dried it with the striped towel from the oven handle. The muscle memory of decades moved my hands more than thought did. The rituals hadn't changed, but I had. Something had shifted, not broken, just adjusted, like a frame that had hung crooked for years, and one day you finally noticed it was off. I glanced at my phone once more. No calls, no alerts, no "sorry, I forgot," not even a meme or a gif. Just silence. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty about that silence. I felt clarity. This year, I wasn't waiting anymore. Last year, I got flowers. This year, I got fraud. I wanted to believe the dinner at Laurente's was a one-off mistake, a lapse in judgment. Maybe Andrew had acted without thinking. Maybe he'd intended to make it right. But the next morning, I opened my banking app again. Not out of fear, just curiosity. That's when I saw the next charge. $6.35. Bean Corner Coffee, 11:42 p.m. I don't drink coffee that late. I haven't been to that cafe in years, and certainly not at nearly midnight. Same card, same last 4 digits, 3289. The card with my name on it. I stared at the transaction longer than I meant to. Then I reached for my notebook again, the same one I'd written in yesterday. I turned to a fresh page and recorded the new details. March 22nd, Laurente's Trattoria, $94.20. March 22nd, Bean Corner Coffee, $6.35, 11:42 p.m. I paused. Then, without even knowing why, I tapped into the security tab on the bank app and checked device access. There were 3 devices logged in. One was mine. One was my tablet, used mostly for reading. The third? A smartphone I didn't recognize. Different model, different location. Logged in 4 months ago. Still active. I sat there, utterly still. Not afraid, just cold, as if something I'd trusted had quietly turned against me, as if my name, my numbers, my trust had become someone else's convenience, not just once, but often. I opened Instagram again. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, only that I was no longer willing to pretend it wasn't there. I didn't have to search long. He had posted again. Another photo, late at night, of himself in a sleek booth, head tilted back in laughter, cocktail glass raised under soft golden light. The table overflowed, oysters, calamari, pasta, 3 desserts. The caption? Same as always. Treat yourself. You deserve it. I stared at the image. Not the food. Not the friend next to him. Just Andrew. The way his jaw tightened even in a smile. The way he leaned into the camera as if to prove something. A man trying to look relaxed, but failing to conceal the performance. I scrolled to the comments. Real ones only, someone wrote, and then another comment. Short. Sharp. Did your mom pay again? No one replied. They didn't need to. I put down my phone. My tea had long gone cold. I walked to the corner of my living room where my laptop sat idle on the old oak desk. I opened the lid, clicked into the browser, and typed slowly. How to report unauthorized family credit card use. Auto suggestions appeared before I could finish typing. I clicked the top link, my bank's fraud protection page. At the top, in bold letters, recognizing financial abuse from trusted contacts. I read it, line by line, word by word. The examples didn't feel foreign. They felt familiar, too familiar. A quiet wave of something swept through me. Not panic, not even anger, clarity. I clicked Download Documentation Packet, saved it to my desktop, renamed it Selective Memory Report Draft.pdf. I didn't submit it. Not yet. I wasn't rushing. I was preparing. That evening, I poured the last of the tea down the sink, rinsed the mug, and let the silence settle over the house. It wasn't lonely tonight. It was purposeful. It had shape and weight. And for once, I felt I was moving with it, not against it. The next morning, I went to the grocery store. Nothing unusual. Just avocados, lemons, oat milk, and a new box of chamomile. I was standing near the citrus display, gently testing for ripeness, when I heard the voice behind me. Hey, Ma. I didn't look up right away. Not because I didn't recognize it, because I needed a moment to decide how I wanted to respond. When I turned, Andrew stood there, pushing a nearly empty cart, just a 6-pack of flavored sparkling water and a box of frozen dumplings inside. His smile was wide, hopeful. Didn't expect to see you here. I live 10 minutes away, I said flatly, dropping a lemon into my basket. Right, he chuckled, adjusting his sleeves. Just meant, we haven't run into each other lately. I looked at him. Well, life. He followed as I moved toward the oranges. How have you been? He asked. Fine. Yeah, it's just, things have been a little tight lately. Rent, gas, bills. You know how it is. I didn't answer. I swapped one orange for another. Then, casually, as though trying to erase the last 24 hours, he asked, You doing anything this weekend? Not sure. Why? Was thinking, Maybe we could go to dinner. My treat, just the two of us. Sunday. He said it with a softness that used to work, that used to melt me. I looked up from the fruit. Text me the time. He grinned. Great, I'll find a nice spot. When he turned toward the checkout lanes, I noticed something about his cart, how empty it was, how it looked curated, almost, as if he was trying to appear frugal, struggling, sympathetic. I watched him walk away, then reached for my phone. In the Notes app, I typed, March 24th, ran into Andrew at grocery, friendly tone, said he wants to take me to dinner, sparkling water and frozen dumplings in cart, mentioned money being tight, dinner invite equals distraction, monitor receipts. When I got home, I placed my groceries in their usual spots, lemons in the ceramic bowl, tea in the cupboard, avocados wrapped in brown paper to ripen. Then I sat at the dining table, reopened my laptop. The file was still there on the desktop, selective memory report draft.pdf. I didn't open it. I didn't delete it. I simply renamed it pending.pdf, not because I was unsure, but because now I wanted to choose the exact moment, and I would. He invited me to dinner. I said yes. He picked the place. I picked the moment. I arrived 10 minutes early, not because I was nervous, and certainly not because I was excited. I've just always preferred to arrive, prepared, calm, with time to breathe. Some habits don't break, even when the people you formed them for forget you. Laurenti's looked the same. Soft amber lights, white linen tablecloths, candlelight flickering gently in frosted glass holders. It was elegant, not extravagant, the kind of place designed to feel expensive, but never too loud about it. A place people chose when they wanted to feel like they mattered. I wore a slate gray blazer, a subtle pearl necklace, and my favorite lipstick, rosewood. Not glamorous, not showy, but appropriate. I dressed the way a woman does when she's been invited to be honored, not overlooked. The hostess greeted me kindly and led me to a table near the back, beneath a low chandelier that cast warm halos onto the table. I took my seat, smoothed my napkin into my lap, and folded my hands. Would you like something to drink while you wait? The waiter asked. Just water for now, I replied, not looking up. He won't be long. Andrew arrived 15 minutes late. He walked in like charm could erase the clock, too much cologne, sleeves rolled to his elbows, smiling as if we had no history to remember. Hey, Ma, he said, leaning in for a one-armed hug that barely brushed my shoulder. I didn't stand. You look nice, he offered, glancing at my necklace as he slid into the seat across from me. Thank you, I said quietly, and nothing more. He opened the menu like he was flipping through an old magazine, too fast, too casually. I've been craving their calamari all week, he said, tapping the page. And their burrata? Unreal. Before I could respond, he raised his hand and flagged the waiter like a regular. We'll have the grilled calamari, the burrata, and a glass of the house red, he said. The waiter nodded, then turned to me. And for you, ma'am? I met his eyes and replied, just the water, thank you. He noted it and left. Andrew didn't notice the shift in my expression. Or maybe he chose not to. I've been meaning to do this, he continued. You know, just us. Things have been crazy lately. Work's been, well, you know how it is. I didn't nod. I didn't speak. I let the silence fill the space between us. I meant to call earlier this week, he added, but Sundays were always kind of our thing, right? He smiled like it was still true. Our thing, I echoed softly. The appetizers arrived before either of us could say more. Andrew dug in immediately, breaking the bread, dipping cheese, scooping olives like a man afraid someone might take the plate away. I watched the way he moved, eager, distracted, like someone performing a routine they didn't realize had already expired. I took a single bite, slowly, letting the salt and herbs bloom on my tongue while I studied him. Midway through the meal, the waiter returned with a practiced smile. Still water for you, ma'am? He asked. I nodded. Then he turned to Andrew. And will you be using the same card as last time? There it was. Not a confrontation, not a trap, just a line delivered politely, habitually, like it belonged there. Andrew froze, his fork mid-air, calamari hanging limp over the plate. What? He asked, eyes flickering. The waiter clarified gently. Apologies, sir. Last time, it was the black card ending in 3289. I just assumed... Andrew looked at me. I didn't speak. I placed my glass gently on the table and folded my hands again. I'll give you a moment, the waiter said, backing away. Andrew opened his mouth, but I had already turned my gaze toward the candle. He didn't need an explanation. I didn't owe him one. Not anymore. He reached for his wine instead and took a long sip, staring over my shoulder. Dinner continued, though slower. Less talk. More chewing. He commented on the lamb ragu he intended to order. I said nothing. I watched. When the waiter returned to take our entrees, Andrew smiled quickly and said, "She'll have the trout. I'll go with the lamb ragout, and another glass of red." Then, without asking, he added, "Same card as earlier." The waiter nodded and walked off. Andrew didn't notice me unlock my phone under the table. One tap, the banking app opened. Card ending in 3289. Still active. Freeze card. Are you sure? This time, I didn't hesitate. I tapped. The vibration was soft, a tiny final sound. By the time the entrees arrived, the card had been frozen. And I was done. The trout was good. Perfect skin, lemon zest, delicate herbs. I ate slowly, savoring it as if I were dining alone. Andrew barely touched his food. He kept checking his phone, swiping, frowning. Notifications buzzed, and he dismissed them. Eventually, the waiter returned with the leather check folder. "Just the one check?" he asked politely. Andrew reached for it, confident. He opened the folder, slipped out the card, my card, and handed it over without a glance. The waiter disappeared with it. I waited. A few minutes passed. When he returned, he held the card delicately. "I'm so sorry, sir. The card was declined. It appears to be frozen." Andrew blinked. "You what?" he asked, turning toward me. "Oh," I said softly, tilting my head. "I must have frozen it by mistake." I reached into my purse, pulled out 2 crisp 20s and a 10, and laid them flat on the table with steady hands. "Things happen." The waiter hesitated. "Would you mind splitting the check?" I asked sweetly. "Absolutely," he replied, vanishing once again. Andrew stared at me, his mouth open, words swirling behind clenched teeth. I didn't rush. I folded my napkin and placed it beside my empty plate. The waiter returned with 2 checks. I paid mine in cash. Andrew pulled out a card I'd never seen before, swiped it quickly, approved, but just barely. As the waiter walked away, Andrew looked at me like he wanted to say something. "Well," I said, rising, "that was lovely." He opened his mouth. I gave him nothing but silence. I sat quietly in my car, still parked under the soft glow of Lorente's golden signage. I hadn't turned the engine on yet. The air inside was still, faintly scented with the perfume I had worn, now dulled by evening's quiet. Somewhere inside, Andrew was likely still trying to make sense of what just happened at the register. But me? I felt light, not victorious, not smug, just light, like I had finally put down a burden I didn't realize I'd been carrying for years. It wasn't the kind of relief that makes you want to laugh or cry. It was the kind that fills the space beneath your ribs with breath, the kind that whispers, "You did the right thing." I remembered the look on Andrew's face when the waiter returned with my black card in hand and said, "I'm so sorry, sir. The card was declined. It appears to be frozen." Andrew had blinked, confusion flashing across his features. "What?" The waiter hesitated. "It may have been a security setting. Perhaps the account holder." Andrew turned to me, searching for some kind of reassurance, something to explain away the embarrassment. I tilted my head slightly and offered a soft, neutral answer. "Oh, I must have accidentally frozen it earlier this week." His eyes widened, then narrowed, like he didn't know which emotion to choose next. I reached into my purse, pulled out 2 crisp $20 bills and a 10, and laid them carefully on the table. "I'll cover my share. Thank you for the invitation." The waiter glanced between us, sensing the undercurrent, but trained well enough not to react. "Would you mind splitting the check?" I asked, with the polite grace of someone confirming a reservation. "Of course," he said, and disappeared quickly. Andrew stared at me like I had just undone years of unspoken agreement. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't even cold. I was calm, and for the first time in a long time, I had drawn a boundary and kept it standing. When the waiter returned with the receipts, I paid mine in cash. Andrew used a different card, one I didn't recognize. It went through just barely. I stood up, shrugged on my coat, and gave him a small nod. That was lovely. "Mom," but I had already turned away, walking toward the door, letting my silence fill the space his apology couldn't reach. Outside, the air was cool and carried the faint scent of early spring. A breeze tugged gently at the hem of my coat. I walked slowly toward the parking lot, my heels tapping against the concrete in steady rhythm. "I'll walk you to your car," Andrew said behind me, voice tight. Not a question, just a statement. I didn't respond. I just kept walking. When I reached my silver sedan, I pulled the keys from my purse. "I parked over there," he said, pointing vaguely to the far side of the lot. Didn't realize we were this far apart. Still, I didn't answer. "You doing okay?" he asked, standing awkwardly near my passenger side. I finally turned to face him. "You said I've been quiet lately," I replied, "but I've actually said a lot. You just weren't listening. He shifted. I didn't mean to upset you. I didn't think... You used my credit card without permission, I cut in. More than once. You ignored my request to stop. Then you blocked me. He looked away, jaw tightening. I didn't mean it like that. Intent doesn't erase impact, Andrew. He said nothing. I opened the car door. Drive safe. Mom. I closed the door. Inside, the leather seat felt warm, familiar. I glanced out the windshield and saw him standing there, keys dangling from one hand, face unreadable. Eventually he turned and walked away, toward a car idling near the curb. Someone else was behind the wheel, young, hood up, engine still running. Not his car, not his world, at least not one I recognized anymore. I waited until their car disappeared around the corner before I started mine. The drive home was quiet, no music, no radio, just the hush of tires over pavement and a mind running clear. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't second guess. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, opened my leather notebook and wrote, March 26th, dinner at Laurente's. Card declined. Intentional. Andrew asked, what are you doing? I paid my half in cash. Separate checks. No apology. He left in a borrowed car. Driver unknown. Clear. Calm. Final. I closed the book gently. This time, I hadn't swallowed the discomfort. I'd served it back. Measured. Precise. And I slept well that night. He said it wasn't intentional, but the numbers told another story. The next morning I made tea as always, but instead of my usual chamomile, I chose black tea. Strong. No sugar. The bitterness kept me focused. It fit the day. I sat by the east-facing window in my study, where the early light spilled across the oak desk like quiet permission. My laptop was already open. The file I had carefully prepared sat waiting on the desktop. Pending.pdf. I clicked to open it. 3 pages. Each one a ledger of betrayal. Unauthorized charges, date, time, amount, location, coffee shops at midnight, rideshare services at dawn, boutique restaurants I hadn't stepped foot in for years, all linked to a card bearing my name. The final page totaled everything, $1,680.72. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to say, this was deliberate, patterned, real. I opened a new email, addressed to Harold Benson, my attorney. Subject, supplemental documentation, financial misuse attached to the file. I kept the message short. Harold, please find attached a detailed record of all unauthorized transactions by Andrew. Request to include in the formal legal case file. Sincerely, Margaret Whitmore. No fluff, no softness, just facts. I hit send. Then I sat back and exhaled, not out of relief, but resolution, like I had locked a door behind me that had been left ajar for far too long. Later that morning, I opened my file cabinet, retrieved every legal document I had once signed with trust in my heart and Andrew's name on the line. Power of attorney, medical proxy, shared account authorizations. I began with the emergency contact form. Andrew used to be listed first. I had told myself, he's family. He should be the one. But when I broke my wrist 2 years ago, it was Susan Lane, my neighbor, who drove me to the hospital. When the storm knocked out power last winter, it was Susan who brought candles and warm blankets. I opened the online portal, replaced Andrew's name with hers, updated relationship, trusted friend, phone number, confirmed, save. Next I moved to the bank account. I had once given Andrew access as an exercise in responsibility. Now I knew better. I logged in. Under authorized users, his name sat there, bold and unapologetic. I clicked remove. Are you sure you want to permanently revoke access? Yes. Gone. Finally, the power of attorney. 5 years ago, he had signed beside me, barely looking up from his phone. I remembered how he said, sure, whatever helps, before pocketing the pen. It had helped him, not me. I opened the updated form Harold had prepared months ago, printed 2 copies. I called Susan to witness the signing. She didn't ask questions, just said, I'm proud of you. That afternoon, I pulled out 2 years' worth of printed statements. I went through them page by page with a yellow highlighter. At first, the charges looked harmless, small, forgettable, but then patterns emerged. Uber rides I never took, streaming services I never used, a phone charger bought days after I thought I'd lost my wallet, but later found it in my coat pocket, untouched. 9 such incidents. I logged them all, then I froze. There it was, $213.89, Jewel Box Fine Gifts, March 22nd. My birthday. I hadn't gone shopping that day. I'd baked a cake, I'd made tea. That was it. I typed the name into my browser. The first result was a local boutique, satin scarves, designer perfumes, delicate sapphire necklaces. The first item on the page, a teardrop-shaped sapphire pendant, $213.89. I leaned back in my chair, fingers still resting on the mouse. It wasn't even wrapped for me. I opened my notebook again. March 27th, removed Andrew from all legal and financial access. Final charge, jewelry store, March 22nd. Sapphire pendant, amount matches, recipient unknown, not me. And in the corner, I added, small but sharp, he says it wasn't intentional, the charges say otherwise. The sun shifted through the window, casting a soft stripe of light across the table. I didn't check my phone. I didn't wait for an apology. Instead, I picked up the file, labeled it Tate Full Record, and slipped it into the metal drawer with a quiet snap. Done. I used to believe that if I waited long enough, if I sacrificed enough, then my child would understand. That if I stayed silent, if I didn't rock the boat, our family would stay intact. But I was wrong. Silence is not love, and endurance is not a solution. When I mailed Andrew the printed breakdown of his unauthorized charges, I wasn't hoping for repayment. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I just needed to do one thing, end the silence I had been living in for far too long. I printed 3 pages, every charge, every date, every card number. Bold on the first page, total balance due, $1,680.72. No flowers, no comments. Just the truth, the kind he always assumed I wouldn't speak. I sealed the pages in a pale gray envelope, brought them to the post office, and paid for tracking and delivery confirmation. I didn't write my name on the return address. I knew he'd recognize it. I didn't track the package. I didn't need to. I knew it arrived because 4 days later, a message popped up on my phone. Why are you doing this? That's all it said. No, I'm sorry. No, I didn't realize. Not even a question of, can we talk? Just a single line that made me the villain. I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel rage. I felt clear. I typed slowly, like I was writing in my ledger, just reconciling my accounts. Not angry, not accusatory, just a fact. That evening, I sat alone in my kitchen with a cup of peppermint tea. I looked at the photo still taped to the fridge, Andrew at graduation, wearing his crooked cap, that wide, toothy grin. I took it down. I didn't tear it. I didn't throw it away. I just turned it around so the picture faced the wall. It didn't need to look at me anymore, and I didn't need to keep looking for the boy, who no longer looked back. 3 days passed. No message. On the 4th day, 2 notifications lit up in quick succession. Venmo. Payment request declined. Venmo. User has blocked you. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I took a screenshot. Saved it. Then I opened my email. To Harold Benson. Subject, additional documentation attached. The screenshot, captioned only, payment refused. Access blocked. Please add to file. I signed the message. Margaret Whitmore. No regards. No closing line. Just my name, firm and final. That afternoon, as I stirred a pot of lentil soup on the stove, my phone buzzed again. 4 failed charge attempts. Time, 3:04 p.m. total, $532.89 vendors, rideshare, electronics, sneakers, and food delivery. I didn't panic. I didn't curse. I just set the phone down gently and continued stirring. Later that evening, I opened my computer and went to the folder labeled Tate Activity. I created a new document, March 31st, 4 declined charges immediately after Venmo block. All attempts flagged, requesting high-level fraud surveillance from the bank. Then I opened a live chat with my bank. I typed, user with prior unauthorized use has attempted new charges post-block. Please freeze all access and escalate to full fraud investigation. The agent replied within minutes. Your accounts are now locked under executive review. Any future login attempts will trigger direct alerts. I saved the transcript, closed the laptop. That night, I slept soundly. No dreams, no alarms. 3 days later, my lawyer Harold called. It's done, he said. We've submitted the case file to the county sheriff's office. Detective Karen Monroe has taken it. He's been served. I didn't ask how Andrew reacted. I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I wasn't basing my decisions on his emotions anymore. I opened my notebook and wrote, April 9th, official case filed. Andrew served with notice. I am the reporting party. And underneath, with a red underline, he thought I was too sentimental to report him. I was just slow to press send. The next morning, a voicemail came through. I didn't recognize the number, but the voice was unmistakable. Mom, I got something from the county. I don't understand why you'd take it this far. You know I've been struggling. Do you really want to do this to your own son? I didn't reply. I didn't keep the message. I deleted it. Then I opened my legacy file. That afternoon, I sat across from Harold in his office as he reviewed my new will. It was short. Director. Unapologetic. No direct heirs. All assets to fund a scholarship for older women returning to school, especially single mothers and unpaid family caregivers. I signed each page with steady hands. No hesitation. I wasn't disowning Andrew. I was simply closing the door he had chosen to walk out of. That Thursday evening, I stood in a circle of 15 women at the local community center. Some had silver hair, others held their purses in their laps like shields. All of them looked tired in that familiar, quiet way. I took a breath, then said, "My son used my credit card to take someone else to dinner. On my birthday." No one gasped. No one interrupted. They just nodded, softly, like they knew. I told them the rest, the late-night charges, the frozen card, the day I split the dinner check with the child I once gave everything to. I told them about the deleted photos, the printed receipts, and the moment I stopped asking for understanding. I looked around the room. I used to think protecting him was the same as loving him. Now I know. Setting boundaries is love too, and protecting myself is not betrayal, it's dignity. One woman reached over and took my hand. Another whispered, "You just saved me $2,000. I smiled, quietly, not with pride, but with peace. That weekend, I ate breakfast at a little diner on Monroe Street, just me, just eggs, toast, and coffee. The waitress, a woman about my age with a pencil tucked behind her ear, smiled and asked, "Celebrating something today?" I thought for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, freedom, financial and otherwise." She chuckled, refilled my cup, and said, "First slice of pie's on the house." I didn't even need dessert. But the gesture? It was the kind of sweetness that didn't need sugar. I took the long way home that morning, through the park, where I once pushed Andrew on the swings, past the bench where he learned to tie his shoes. The same park, but not the same me. I still remembered. I just didn't ache anymore. Later that evening, I opened my notebook and wrote, April 14th, my assets were redirected to those who truly deserve them. The will was signed. The story was shared. I am no longer someone to be taken for granted. I am someone who finally reclaimed her worth. And the lesson I've learned, not from a single painful night, but from a lifetime of quiet endurance, is this. When others treat you like you're replaceable, be the first to remind them you're not. When your kindness is mistaken for weakness, protect it like the treasure it is. And if no one offers you respect, be the first to give it to yourself. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. You just have to rise, quietly, but unmistakably. If you're listening to this and you recognize yourself in this story, know this. You are not alone. Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one because every voice deserves to be heard. Tap like if you've ever sacrificed silently and gone unseen, and subscribe to She Stories Margaret, where we tell emotional stories from real women who were once overlooked but chose to rise with grace and power. Because what makes you unforgettable is not who walked away from you, but how you chose to walk forward anyway. This is a fictional story that is not intended to offend or target anyone. It is created solely to convey a meaningful lesson to viewers, and all character names are entirely fictional.